Lonely Monk Productions.
I don't know if y'all have heard a bar about a bar by Chance the Rapper yet, but yo.
That's my Jawn! Hey yo, displace the guilt.
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life, dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Jawn Carpenter, a.k.a. Jawn from Cincinnati, a.k.a. Jawn Q Public, a.k.a. the guy who coughs and quickly announced to everyone around him, nah, it's not COVID. Seriously, it's not COVID. I have tested all week, and I keep testing negative. It's my allergies, aka Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. Today, my guest is Andy Hurwitz, founder of the nonprofit 30 Amp Circuit. We have an epic conversation about his career and the Love from Philly festival that 30 Amp Circuit is putting on this Saturday, June 11th on the Ben Franklin Parkway. And that conversation is coming up in a minute. But first, gang, how are we doing? Are we good? Everybody enjoying this beautiful weather we've been having? Well, as I just alluded to in the intro, my voice sounds like hooker rap, so I apologize. Again, not COVID. Not that you guys can get it through your speakers. Well, you know, not yet at least. But anyway, while I got you here, have you subscribed to the podcast yet on all your favorite podcast providers? Well, please do that right now. Hit that little sub button, buddy. It'll be fun. You'll get these episodes delivered right to you. And make sure you're following us on the socials. You know, you're following us on the socials, right? At Yo, That's My Jawn for the Insta and Twitter. Facebook.com/Yo, That's My Jawn for the Facebook. Look, just Google Yo, That's My Jawn. And if there's a way to like or follow or subscribe, whatever comes up in that search, just do that. And also, you know, we got merch for sale. You can find a link to the shop and so much more by visiting www.yothat'smyjawn.com. All the cool kids are doing it. Bet. All right, I got that out of the way. We have a great episode for you here, and I want to jump right into it. So let's jump, kangaroos. My guest today has worn many hats in the music industry, from entertainment attorney to A&R guy to label head to author, just to name a few. He has worked with the likes of Pearl Jam, John Medeski, DJ Logic, Christian McBride, Charlie Hunter, King Britt, Questlove, and Snarky Puppy. But most recently, he founded 30 Amp Circuit, the nonprofit dedicated to the health, wellness, and professional needs of musicians and artists of all mediums. This Saturday, June 11th, 30 Amp Circuit will be putting on the free Love from Philly Festival on the Ben Franklin Parkway in Philadelphia. The event will feature live performances from Rich Medina, Cosmo Baker, Lauren Hart, the West Philly Orchestra, Schoolie D, the Philly Gospel Preservation Alliance, the Ultimates, Ursula Rucker, the Tisburys, and our old friend from earlier this season, Wallace, and many, many more great acts. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show today, Andy Hurwitz. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Andy Hurwitz. Andy, thank you for joining me here on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So in doing research for this interview and setting things up, I was very excited to find out that you played a part in two of what may be my favorite albums of all time. And that is the Philadelphia Experiment and the Sister Gertrude Morgan Experience, which are just they're two things that, you know, later on I'm going to ask you like an unappreciated Jawn. To me, those two albums are 100% unappreciated Jawn. So
thank you. Wait. Yeah, thank you. Bam, right there with you. Number one and number two on my list for sure.
So tell these people a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Huntington Valley. It's a suburb, northeast suburbs, nothing glamorous, basic suburban life.
Yeah. What were your parents? What did your parents do?
Oh God, it's so funny to think about that. I don't know what they did. I feel like when I was a kid, I don't know anything. I felt like all the parents were Snoopy, Peanuts, wah, 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 wah parents. I guess my mom was a teacher and my dad was in marketing.
Okay.
I only say that because it wasn't like a thing. And I guess they just worked when I was growing up, you know?
No,
it
it totally makes sense.
Influential job that changed my life because my dad was a drummer or anything. It was the one influence though that I guess that they did have. My dad, he loved music. He loved music so much. He had a little record room downstairs in the living room. He was a super quiet dude. He was really reserved in a lot of ways, but he would lock himself in that music room and had just listen and sing. And it wasn't the most, looking back, it was kind of funny, cheesy, like Jewish parents' music, like Barry Manilow and Barbra Streisand and stuff. But his passion was what I took from it. Like, he would take him to a different place. I'd never seen him happier than when he listened to music.
That's incredible. Did either of them play any music at all, or
no, not even.
What was that music room like an open thing? Could you go in and partake, or was that like dad's house?
I didn't really. It was funny though, because I made my own little music room in my room. I just didn't want it. It smelled good in there from all the records. I didn't really fuck with the record rooms. It was his little spot. But later I would get into it more. But I was just marveled at the way it was all laid out. Tapes and records. He had his little collection, and I think I more emulated that in my own little room.
Yeah. What were you playing in your room? What was drawing you back then?
Dude, I mean, I'm 55 years old, so what I was playing in the 70s and 80s was nothing to write home about. It's funny. I wish I could grow up and be like, man, I was listening to Zappa and Coltrane, and I was just listening to what white kids in the suburbs listen to, classic rock. I mean, that was it. Hey man, it was fucking great. And the radio, and there was nothing really, I just had a passion for music. I loved it. I think my musical journey was sort of like when in Rome. When I was in high school, I listened to classic rock, but then when I went to college in Boston, I was like turned on to this kind of Euro music, like the Smiths and the Cure. But it was really my real moment, and again, from my age, was when I was in college. I went to Tufts up in Boston, and I had a buddy over at Harvard. I'm not that smart. I just happened to know that this kid, his name was John Schechter, and he started The Source. Yeah. And we learned, I was hip from a job early on as a busboy in Murray's Delicatessen in Jenkintown. I was, my generation was around for the birth of hip hop. If you were tuned in, and I was tuned in, man, that was my first music, takeover, something that I felt like I had ownership of, and really just, it's funny how hip hop did open my mind into other genres of music like R&B and especially jazz. It's about 100%. I was like, all these jazz cats are saying, hip hop cats like, Tribe Called Quest and De La and everyone that was giving it up. I think it forced me to go back and check that out. So anyway, I digress. We were talking about my unglamorous childhood.
No, it's perfect. So when hip hop came out, were you going to some of the shows and stuff like that in the city at all, or just radio? And
no, really when it came out the way. I mean, I think the first show that I went to was the Budweiser Fresh Fest at the Spectrum, and it was like Run DMC, the Beastie Boys, LL Cool J. But I was always more recorded than anything else. I loved to listen to music in my headphones, and it was more about the Power 99 Top 9 at 9, and I would record that on my tape recorder and listen to it. So I wasn't as heavy on the live experience as I was just, I don't even think I knew that some of this stuff was actually live. It was just all so mysterious. I couldn't imagine that Grandmaster Flash, even though I did see him, it just didn't seem like, the groups that would be live at the time.
Yeah, it's so true too, because I remember the first time I saw Run DMC live, and I was even heard, I think they were performing at we'll say the American Music Awards or something like that, and they were next up Run DMC, and I was an enormous Run DMC fan. Mm-hmm. That was my entry point. And I was what are they going to do? Are they, it's right. Three guys. How are they going to do this? And then, Jay was just so amazing that I was oh, that's what they're going to do. Of course, it makes sense. But yeah, I it's like you said, I never thought of it as a live thing. And to be honest, I think the first hip hop show I saw was probably I think I saw Das Effects in college.
Das Effects. They were all that.
Yeah, and they invited everybody back to their hotel room afterwards. It was the coolest show ever, man. But
I was playing that for my son. That should age well. That whole thing he did with the double time. That was great.
Yeah, it's really great to kind of go back and revisit a lot of hip hop from that era, because like it is evergreen, like it stands, you know, and like, you know, I DJ every once in a while, and like you can still bang a dance floor, you know, dropping some of those early cuts, like they move people.
Yeah.
So
they're also like, it was before sampling law took over too. So there was like all kinds of great, I mean, they moved people because some of those songs were just recycled other great songs.
Yeah.
So
you know, you said you went to college at Tufts. Like, what was your undergrad focus when you went there?
Getting out of Tufts primarily. I don't, you know, it's just such a blur. I think I was a late bloomer in life. I don't know, man. What did you go to college knowing what you wanted to do?
I did, and I ended up not doing it. And it was
what was your thing?
I wanted to work in TV and film, which I guess this kind of is.
Did you go to Temple?
No, I went to IUP.
Okay.
Out in Western PA, in University of Pennsylvania, and I didn't graduate, but no, like I wanted to be a filmmaker. That was my thing when I was growing up. I was obsessed with movies and music. Like the two things were always just married in my mind, and those were.
And do you still do film? Mess with it, but it just seems like life now with content and your phone and everything is a film anyway, I guess. Exactly. You know, like, I was a writer as well. Like I wrote a lot of screenplays, and every once in a while, like whenever Apple does one of those commercials where they're like, look what you can do with the 13 Pro. I'm like, I should dust off one of those screenplays and make this film, you know, like, but like you said, man, life gets in the way, and there's, you know, when am I ever going to find that time? Well, it's the journey, right? It led you here to this moment.
That's right. So then you end up going to Washington College of Law. Now, when you eventually, I'm jumping all over the place here, become a entertainment attorney. Was that like when you were looking into law? Was that kind of primarily what you were thinking about, or? Yeah,
so I feel like really when I sort of woke up from a haze of just kind of getting by in life and really not knowing what I wanted to do. I went to law school because I just didn't. I honestly thought that I was going to be a public defender and help a lot of my criminal friends. I was like, you know, I know enough hooligans, and I like, you know, representing the underrepresented. But when I went to law school at Washington College of Law, I told you about my friend John Schechter, and hip hop started to blow up, and a little bit, and I went to the radio station there. I didn't do any of the cool stuff in college. That's why I think I was a late bloomer. While I was in law school, I went to WAMU, or the radio station, and I started a hip hop radio show there because I was getting all of the incredible stuff from John and from the source early. And as if anyone listened, you know, college radio, the kind of stuff like I was really into it. And I was, you know, if you're on that circuit, the record labels back then would, like, you know, they would call like, do you want to, you know, like DOS Effects. That was the kind of the bands that would roll in and they'd want to come on the radio station and show up at your show. And man, I was smitten at that point because one of the road managers was like, oh, you go to law school, you know, you could be a music lawyer. And it sounds silly in this day and age, but it was before the internet. It was before fucking Puff Daddy made kids go get cheesecakes in Brooklyn. And I didn't know there was any of that. I was like, that's a thing, And that's really what happened. It was me just loving music. And it was like the Reese's peanut butter cup. Like you could put your chocolate and peanut butter together. So I did. I went down that path. Really is. But once I was, you know, the passion was the music, not the law. And eventually, because my story is long, you know, the problem for me was that I wasn't as passionate about the law as I was the music. But, you know, to be a good lawyer, you have to get a fucking hard on for, like, you know, contracts, you know, like, oh, I'm going to kill this contract. And, you know, there were guys that were just better at it than me at it. But it was my pathway into this world. So, and still, it still is. And I'm still grateful for that opportunity. And you know, it's my little ace in the hole for whatever, you know, anyone could be in the music business, but I'm like, you know, it's like, I got that still as my little gun anyway, that's what happened. I went, put the two together. And, in Philly, I was lucky enough to find an amazing, I think in life, everyone should have mentors, and if you could find them, and if someone's going to give back to you, this guy, Brad Rubens, who's still the biggest, best entertainment lawyer in Philly. He represents the Roots and Amir and just about everybody. He took me under his wing, and he ended up getting me a job with, of all people, Pearl Jam. And I worked for them for a couple of years. When they took on Ticketmaster, and we were an entity that put Pearl Jam on on tour in venues that weren't run by Ticketmaster, while fighting Ticketmaster in the Supreme Court. And I was part of the legal team that had to deal with all of the legalities of being in these weird off-site venues, and also dealing with the monopoly claim. And we eventually lost, and Ticketmaster won, and the band was just worn down from going on tour of these like crappy, dilapidated off the road venues. And at the end of the tour, I was hanging out. It sounds so like rock star cliche, but it really was true. I was hanging out with the band, and like, Eddie Vedder of all the people, he was so cool. We all had meetings together in this company. So, the lawyers, the band, it was a heavy operation taking on Ticketmaster, going on this tour. It was all hands on. And at the end of the party, the last show in San Diego, he called me Suit, because I always wore a suit because I was a lawyer, and I was so insecure. I was like so young looking. I was like, I'm a lawyer. You could tell by my suit, but it just kind of stuck. And he was like, Suit, you could do other things. Like, you could go work for a record label. You don't have to be a lawyer. And that was sort of my next like aha moment. And I was like, yeah, man, that's what I want to do. And so I went to New York and started from there. And I basically started over at that point.
That's a killer. Like, that's a great person to put you on a trajectory too.
Yeah, it was like super matter of fact. And he didn't know my name. He just knew that because I would raise my hand, like almost like there was this movie with Tom Hanks, Big, and he was like a little kid at his many. Like, I don't get it. I would sort of be like, I'm like, I don't get it. Why don't you just put a fucking billboard up, and they'd be like, so I had these ideas, and I think that's what that's what led him to say that, I would always have these ideas. I'd be like, yeah, that's, so yeah, man, it was all part of the journey. And those guys were great, by the way, for whatever it's worth. I mean, they're just as legitimate as it could be. I learned so much from just watching them, and their work ethic and their practice ethic, like, you don't become a band that big just by being lazy. They work so hard, and they rock hard, man.
Yeah, like I couldn't imagine, it's hard enough being in a band and creating and, being a creative, but then to also kind of take on the behemoth that is Ticketmaster. Like no hyperbole, I'm shocked that they made it through that as a band. Like,
yeah, it was a big deal. I mean, and it's just, they were so righteous. And I think looking back, I don't think they did it for publicity. They were so young and so like, well, we'll just do it and so big. They were the biggest band in the world that they could, and it was just ballsy. It's like, where are those rock and roll heroes that do stuff like that? Like, that's what bands used to do, stand for their rights and create like socially conscious movements, and it's totally at the expense of their own pocketbook, but they're legit. They still are.
Yeah, definitely. So then, you start to kind of work with record companies. So Knitting Factory was next, right?
Right.
How did they look for you, or did you kind of seek them? Yeah.
No. It's a long story. But it's the one story I tell when I work with young people, give them some advice. It's a minute of a story. So here it is. I moved to New York, and I'm like, hey, I'm a lawyer. I went Pearl. And like, no, but it was the biggest ass kicking ever. I thought I was going to walk into New York and people were going to fight over me, And I thought just because I was a lawyer, everyone was like, dude, you have no resume to be on a record label. Like, what you think? I was like, I want to be an A&R guy. Eddie Vedder told me I could. And everyone's like, shut the fuck up. Well, who are you? It was a good long time before I got a job. And I was really upset. It had been about 8 months. And I was falling into a hole. I was working in a coffee shop, living in Long Island. And this is a true story that is really great. On Valentine's Day, I dressed up as a bicycle delivery man. And this was before September 11th. This was fucking what year? This was like 1990 something, 8, 7. And I bought a big thing of chocolate candy at Rite Aid and emptied out it was a heart-shaped candy box. I emptied out all the candy and I put my resume in it with a letter. And there was only 3 people that I wanted to work for at that time. One was Clive Davis, just because. Like,
of course.
He was, I was like, oh, Clive Davis, and Arista Records. Then there was Giant Step Records, this dude, Maurice Bernstein, and then the Knitting Factory. And what blew me away about the Knitting Factory was they had a label, but they also had a club, and they also had a festival. It was like really before its time kind of thing. So I set out with my candy. I had this jumpsuit, a denim jumpsuit, and a bike pack delivery bag, and I still have a clipboard. And so I had 3 of these candies for delivery, and I would just show up. It was before September 11th. You could just walk. Can you imagine? You could just get in the building and go in the elevator and like show up at Arista Records. But it was Valentine's Day, so there was tons of people coming and going with flowers. Valentine's Day vibe, and I walked in and I told the secretary, I'm like, hey, I'm here to see Clive Davis. It's the Secret Admirer Society. I have a package from him. She's like, I'll take it. I'm like, it's the Secret Admirer Society. I have to give it to him. They're like, okay. Walked right in. And I remember, it's funny, it was before computers were dominant. Like, what do you think people did in the office before computers? They just had like papers and shit, and the phone. He was on the phone. He didn't even look at me. He signed it without looking with his right hand. I still have that paper. I never heard back from him. That was that. No. And then so the next place I went, I was going downtown, was Giant Step and blah, 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 Secret Admirer Society. And the dude, I don't know, the guy's name is Maurice Bernstein. And I didn't know that he was Australian. So I didn't know it was him. He was sitting at the door like the receptionist. I'm like, oh, Secret Admirers for Maurice Bernstein. He's like, I'm Maurice Bernstein. And I'm like, oh shit, well, here, you have to sign this thing. And he's like, wait. And he opened the whole thing. And he kind of like picked up on it,
Yeah.
He looked at me and he's like, dude, in his Australian accent, he's like, this is fucking brilliant. He's like, look, I applaud your effort. If you ever need anything, he's like, just call me. I don't have a job. And I was like, cool, except I was a little dejected because I thought, I don't know, it just hit me that, okay, I have one left, and okay, the story's coming to an end to anyone that's listening to this. And long story is, I end up at the Knitting Factory. I asked for Michael Dorf, and their offices were downstairs. There was a club, 2 clubs upstairs, and then in the basement, there's offices, and they were all, it was a big open workspace. And Michael Dorf, Secret Admirer for Michael Dorf, he's like really loud and obnoxious. And I give him the thing, and he stands up on his chair and makes an announcement. What are cubicles? There's just like cubicles everywhere. And he's like, look who's getting Secret Admirers. Oh. I am, me. He's like, not you, Perlman, not you, Topaz. And I'm like, oh, fuck this guy. And he's short. I'm short. He's shorter than me. I'm like, this guy is going to fucking, I got out of there. I'm walking down the street and I was like, I for real, it's a funny story, but I was really like, it's over. I'm like, what the and then I was like so down on myself. I'm like, what did you think? Like, what Secret of my, I just started beating myself up when fucking Michael Dorf started screaming, hey. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yo, you fucking embarrassed me in front of my whole crew. I'm like, dude, fuck you. I was like, I'm just trying to get a job, And he's like, but that was brilliant. He's like, you're starting on Monday. I'm like, come on, man. He's like, no, you're starting on Monday. Show up in my office on Monday morning. This was a Friday. And I went crazy. The greatest day of my life, told everybody. And I showed up at work on Monday at the Knitting Factory. And my job was sitting in front of his desk. There was a red phone. I just sat there for 3 months. And if the red phone ever rang, I answered it. That was my job for 3 months. So that's how it all started, man. And yeah, but you know what? I just say people if you want to get a job or people that are graduating from University Arts Music Business Program, they're like, how do I get a job? I'm like, it's kind of like that. You kind of really have to show off what that you're willing to go the distance, and you have to get that creative. And that was like decades ago, I mean, I think that you really just need to stand out and just think out of the box. So yeah, man, from there it was another wild ride, but that got me in. That was my big start because, just music. Like I told you about my musical past, which was very average at best, or as my son would say, mid at best. But when I got to the Knitting Factory, man, that was a absolute education. There's 3 stages every night, and and that's when I really fell in love with jazz, and especially this one band, Medeski, Martin and Wood, that I was just like, holy shit, what the fuck? And they had these parties at the Knitting Factory called the Shack Parties. And DJ Logic, it was he was their DJ, and I had never in my life seen anything like that before. Like a DJ played an instrument, and I thought that was it. Hip hop and jazz right there. And Medeski and I just fell in love with Logic, and we became best friends. And as I kept going in my career, I got a job after the Knitting Factory at Columbia Records, working for Columbia Jazz, and I tried to get them to sign Logic, and they were like, nah, we don't see it. And I had become friends with Jawn Medeski, and he said, well, why don't we just put it out? We'll put it out ourselves. And we did. And that was another sort of start that led to my label, Rope-A-Dope. I'm just getting to the good part quickly, but that was kind of the path, and it's all sort of linked. But the big start was the Knitting Factory. And then at Columbia, when no one wanted the record, and we put it out, I didn't know how to really put out a record, but I figured it out, and it was still at the heyday. People were buying records, and man, Logic and MMW were loosely related with Fish, and I had never heard of them before, but Medeski had played for Fish, and there was a weird crossover audience, and it was the beginning of like, the jam scene and what was going on in New York, especially at the Wetlands and clubs like that. And that shit was incredible. And Logic was a part of it. So he's at right place, right time. His record did great. And then there was a bidding war for Rope-A-Dope. Like everyone wanted, labels wanted they're hearing about these bands and the jam scene and whatever. So I was lucky enough to be a part of that. And Rope-A-Dope got a really nice deal with Atlantic Records that set us up for the next couple of years. And, did the records, some of them that you talked about, and it was great. But then people stopped buying records when Napster came out, and that was sort of the beginning and the end. But it was good while it lasted.
Yeah, that was like, and that label that you created, and like other kind of more boutique labels at the time were putting out some really great stuff that like I just finally put together a Discogs account, and I've been like tracking down all of this old physical media that I miss, man. It was such a special time to me for music. Yeah. It's kind of where like my musical integrity came about, so like going back and finding those, like I mentioned the Sister Gertrude Morgan experience.
Yeah, that's incredible that you pulled that one out, man. That was deep. That was really deep.
It blew me away, man.
Right. Do you know the story? Do you know what that is? Yeah, right?
The old voodoo record or voodoo.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so, I don't even know how. I heard that, you know what it was? I had heard it. I was in New Orleans at Jazz Fest, and I heard the record in a New Orleans record store, and I heard her voice, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I had never done any sort of Alan Lomax shit as a record label, like go digging for old stuff and release the old stuff. But I found who owned it, which I just can't even believe how big they are now. But Preservation Hall, they were just not a big deal at the time. And, they own the rights to it. And I talked to Ben Jaffe, who's an amazing dude. And we did a deal so that we put out, because the record itself had never been on CD before. And we put out the original, which is just Sister Gertrude Morgan, who's a big old lady that would sing on her porch in New Orleans in this white robe because she was married to Jesus to anyone that would walk by. And somebody had recorded her just singing on her porch with her tambourine, screaming at people that walk by. She's an amazing artist too. She has tons of art worth millions of dollars. But I was like, man, I would like to take this music. I know the guy that you can't remix it. I couldn't give it to like fill in the blank best DJ ever or best producer, or even, King Britt has like a musicality to him that he was the guy. And man, that was it. He just crushed that record. That is so beautiful. That whole everything is incredible. I play that last song, Precious Lord. I listen to that song all the time. It's a go-to for my like any playlist that I make for anybody, any mixtape. I do yoga. I throw it in at the last song in yoga. People be like, that made me cry, that last song. But good call. Good for you, dude, for knowing that. Because that's I would think that's some obscure shit right there, that record.
It's so good, man. And like I got to see them perform that for the Free at Noon at XPN.
Ooh, wow, with Tim Butcher, on guitar. Wow. Wow.
I'm telling you, I was obsessed, man.
That's really impressive. Holy shit. Whenever people tell me like little in the cut things, like, that's what you do. I mean, you're a musicologist, so not surprising, but it's so long ago. And I've been, so many people have been telling me stories like this recently. And, man, I'm like, right. Cause it's like you said, evergreen, and it goes back to the other record you were talking about, the Philadelphia Experiment. Like you put that on now and it's a banger at parties,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was always my thing. It was a for better or for worse thing. Like look at the Knitting Factory. I met dudes like John Medeski and like Steven Bernstein, who's one of my heroes. He's in this band Sex Mob, and John Laurie, these jazz cats. Like, so there's the old jazz cats, and then these guys were a new generation of jazz, and they just had a different way about them. They were very respectful of their elders, of quality. No one would ever sell out by selling out. I mean, like take the, and I don't know. I was always like, from my label, I was just always about it sounds snobby, but just like the excellence, I don't even want to have to say like, it's so dope or whatever, but just excellence. And, a lot of those records and excellence, not just and it wasn't me, it was always the people I brought in, like a great producer from Philadelphia, Aaron Levinson. He produced the Philadelphia Experiment, King Britt, he produced the Sister Gertrude Morgan thing. My role was always like bringing people in and letting them do their thing. I was not Clive Davis being like, no, do another take. I never felt worthy enough to tell a fucking musician one thing. I'm like, if you think okay, well, I'll tell you what I think, and I'll tell you what, and and I'm always honest with people. I love just telling people what I think, but trust the process, and musicians are incredible. So my point was that jazz mentality of like always striving for the best and being respectful of your elders and stuff. That's kind of what our ethos was at Rope-a-Dope. But I think that's why it lasted, you're bringing me back. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, like and you say you didn't want to get involved and stuff like that, but putting the right people with the right people in the right environment and kind of having a breeding ground for that creativity to kind of survive is kind of getting involved. I mean, like you did it.
No, absolutely. It's just I think it's almost an antiquated concept in these days because I still work with a lot of bands, and it's a different experience. Like and I don't want to sound like, I don't know if it's better or worse, but it's just different. There was a process, there was like nurturing of the art and the artist, and there's I don't know, whatever. It's just different now, and there's still so much greatness coming out of it. But I don't know. I feel like it's just, there was more community and more of a whole, whether the community was record labels, studios, everybody, it was just sort of more integrated. And now, it's just different. That's all. And those were good times. It was like a really great time to be a record label in the late 90s and the early 00s, because the system was so flush. There was so much money because the labels were, and it started from the majors and it trickled down the indies. There was just a lot of cash because of the CD boom. People were buying CDs in the 80s and 90s, and it just made for really exciting times. And, Grammys and parties, and it was the shit. It was a really special time. And it's not that way anymore, because for anything, and even the Oscars, media attention, everything's just so spread out. It's just different.
Yeah, and I always come back to time. Time is always the thing. Like, I feel like we don't spend enough time with things anymore. Like,
that's right.
we're trying to put the content out as immediate as possible.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's right. You're right. You're totally right. I was just telling my son the other day, I was like, dude, can you imagine? Because he turns me on to great music all the time. But I'm like trying to, it was last week when the new Kendrick Lamar record came out, and he stayed up to listen to it. And I was like, okay, so for me, say like, just like you, like when the new Run DMC record came out, I would wait for it, but I would spend all my money on maybe that and maybe another record. And that would be like all the music I had for like a month. Yep. And what I told him was like, he's like, well, what did you do? And I was like, I would listen to that record 8,000 times. That's why I know every word and every groove. And he looked at me, he's like, that sounds kind of cool. And I think like, you're right. There's just, even the new Kendrick record that came out 2 weeks ago, I haven't listened to it since then. That's right. There's 30 other things I've listened to. So it's weird, but different.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what brought me back to physical media, like buying vinyl and stuff like that, is just that like it forces me to be with it for, a side at least, like I'm not going to lift the needle in the middle.
I've for 20 years now, I think, or 15 years, I've been a part of this thing. We call it, it's called MMM, music. And Brad Rubens started it, the lawyer. He was like, it was only at the beginning of all the digital content and too much. And there's 12 of us, and we all bring records. A different person hosts it. It's every other month. And say, if you hosted it, you would supply the food, but everyone else would bring more food, weed and alcohol or whatever. And the host plays the first record, and then everyone else who brings music is like, they get next, I'm going to follow that. But what we ended up doing, and the point is, we all just sit around and listen to music. Like, that's it, not on the computer, not so just sitting. And it's, again, I'm just listening to myself being like, dude, you sound so old. You sound like some grandpa. Like when I was little, I would walk 4 miles to school. And, I feel like that. But man, sitting around listening to music is not anything that I do anymore that I used to do all the time. And it goes back to what you're saying, it's time. Life's just moving too fast for that now.
It's funny. I said this thing in a piece that I wrote. It was kind of like the mission statement of this whole That's My Jawn thing when it was just a website before it was a podcast. And one of the things in there is I never wanted to be the old guy who said everything was better back in my day. But here's the reality. Right. I am that old guy, and it was better back in the day.
Yeah, it really. But you know what? Let's be real though. There's something crazy. Like my new thing that I'm like, okay, new time. So I use Shazam, not just to Shazam things, but to build, like, I'll hear something, I'll be, oh yeah, that Teddy Pendergrass song, I have to get it. So Shazam is like my music, like, to get list. I take it right off Shazam. And then just yesterday, I'm like, I just downloaded or put them on a playlist, like every Teddy who was it? It wasn't Teddy Pendergrass. Whoever it was. I'm trying to think. I know it wasn't Teddy Pendergrass, but whoever it was, just the concept of downloading. Well, here's when I realized I needed to sell rope-a-dope, was when somebody told me about Napster, and I was like, what do you do? And they're like, you go here and this. So I was like, I don't even like Bob Dylan that much, but I was like, who could I think of? And I was like, okay, I'm going to just see, I'll just get all the Bob Dylan records there ever was. And man, I went to bed, and because you had to do it back then, it took so long. And I woke up with the entire Bob Dylan catalog. I was like, oh, this is not good for my record label. It's good for, but I know what you're saying. I keep going back and forth. If it's good, it's bad. It's good, it's bad. But you know what?
It's like you said, it's just different.
It's just different. It's different. But you know what? I go back to it. I have here where I'm at work. This is my little portable record player, and I have my records out. And this is in my yoga studio. And everyone's like, what's that? I'll tell you, this is the best one. I teach jazz to little kids at affiliate public schools, not how to play it, just the concept of jazz. Because I wrote a bunch of books. It's not on, you can't find it. It's called Baby Loves Jazz. I did it with John Medeski. Sharon Jones is Ella Elephant.
I had it written on the notes. Come on, buddy.
Dude, you did your homework. I'm like, wow. So I still do that in public schools. And it came back with the pandemic. Somehow people heard about the books, and I started. Anyway, I usually bring a record into class the first day and the record player. I'm like, okay, I just did this yesterday or Tuesday. I had this record. I'm like, okay, anyone know what this is? And kids, like, right away, they're like, it's music. And I'm like, yeah, it has something to do with music, but what? And dumb answer, not dumb, but just ridiculous answer, ridiculous ask. And then one kid lights up. He's like, I know what it is. I know what it is. I'm like, what? And I thought for sure he was going to say record. He was so sure of it. He's like, it's a playlist. And I'm like, oh man, that is the best answer I've heard yet. I'm like, yeah, it's a playlist.
It is, right?
It's a playlist.
No, it's true. Like, the physical media and just the size of it, like the size of a vinyl, like it makes it feel so much more important. Like that's artwork,
Totally. And like what it used to be, like when I said I would lock myself up in my room, it's like, this is the School ED record that I got, and it came with stickers.
Oh yeah.
But also though, like this is like before the internet. Just like the story about his life and like West Philadelphia and like all like his cartoons and like that was all you had from an artist, So when the physical side of a package now, I mean, like it was, dude, look, we'll change the name of like with the Two Old Dude podcast.
Yeah.
Records are great. So are playlists. Okay. Well, let's end this.
Yeah. So let's kind of jump a little bit here, but how did 30 amp org come about? Like what
everything's a story. I'm sorry.
I love it.
So Charlie Hunter, right? He's a great musician. He was on Rope-A-Dope, and actually later we skipped over. I think one of my favorite parts of my so-called career was later in life, a band that I signed, the Rope-A-Dope, got really famous in their own little way, Snarky Puppy. And
yes.
I went and later in life went to work with them, and we started a label. And Charlie was on the label, and then he came up to me after the cycle of the record and he was free and ready to do his own records. And he was like, hey man, I have an idea of he's like a socialist. He wanted to go to other countries and find young kids that were into being musicians or the music business and like adopt them and give them a series of resources. He's like, why do poor kids in Mexico, like they can't make beats in their bedroom? Like, let's find them and help them and nurture them. Like they can open up gigs for me. We can introduce them to publicists, this whole international sort of discover young people kind of thing. And Charlie and I started a nonprofit called 30 Amp Circuit because the first person that he signed to this label, which was to promote young people from around the world, was this, oh man, it was our first record. She's totally famous now. Silvana Estrada is her name. But Charlie traveled way 8 hours south of Mexico City to record her in her house. And in her house, they only had one power source. They're called 30 amp circuits, the things you plug into. And we recorded the entire record on one 30 amp circuit that shared another circuit with like the dishwasher. And so like we had no electricity, but we made this incredible record. That's why we call it a 30 amp circuit. The problem was, this was in 2016. Our whole marketing plan and everything we did was based on bringing Silvana Estrada, and you could Google her. It was, oh man, she is incredible. Charlie Short, he really knows how to pick them. He found Nora Jones too. But it was right when Trump got elected and decided to declare war on Mexico, and we couldn't get Silvana, and then we had a whole tour plan and a record release, and she couldn't get into the country, and she was a Mexican girl, and we couldn't get her in. We spent so much money on legal fees to get her in. And Charlie, there was a tone about the elections and everything.
Yeah.
Charlie is a no nonsense guy. He's like, dude, this really isn't the best time to start a nonprofit record label for like third, he's like, I can't even travel. Everything is messed up. So good luck with the nonprofit. You could figure another use out. It wasn't like goodbye. He's like, it's just not going to work out. Let's cut our losses.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm with you. But we had a 501c3. We had all the paperwork. When subsequently Ivan Neville, another great musician from New Orleans, invited me down and to show me, he wanted to introduce me to these people called the New Orleans Musicians Clinic that he claims, they saved his life. And the New Orleans Musicians Clinic is a health and wellness for musicians. It's been around for 30 years. They now have a wing about the LSU hospital, all for musicians. Like if you're a musician or even what you do or what I do, you're in. They take care of you in ways you can't even imagine. And Ivan was like for various reasons, wanted me to start one in Philly. And because they have these health and wellness for musicians, they have these chapters all over the world. There's the New Orleans Musicians Clinic in Memphis. It's called something. In Austin, it's called something. In Seattle, it's called something. The Grammy organization has a big one called Music Cares, but there wasn't anything in Philly. So we started a chapter. We started the 30M circuit as an avenue for health and wellness for musicians and artists in Philly. And actually it was national. And we created something called the Backstage Clinic. So we actually won an award right before the pandemic. We won a big grant from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. It was how to get health and wellness to musicians. And we came, I was like, how to find them. I was like, I know where they all are. They're all at festivals. So we set up the trailer and you could give piss and blood and take a bunch of tests, and you can get your vision checked, and then there's someone to help you with insurance. It was a really cool concept. And we were touring that Backstage Clinic when the pandemic hit, and we had we had a lot of money for us in the bank that we were going to tour with that whole summer. And, when the pandemic hit and we were all in lockdown, it was just a really weird time. And I felt like we were never going to leave Philly again. I felt like this is it, this is all we have, all the musicians here. And it just brought me back to my roots, man. I always loved local Philly music. I knew every band ever. And, I came up with this idea. I was like, I asked the nonprofit, Robert Wood Johnson, if I could spend the money on something else. And they're like, yeah, just, do what you want. And so we ended up putting on this Love from Philly virtual festival, giving away all that money to, we call them micro grants, to like a shit ton of artists and musicians. And this festival was just bonkers because one, in a million years, I never could have done anything like this. One, and none of those bands would be all in one place at one time. Two, I could never afford it, but no one was doing anything. And it was just before everyone started doing this, Yeah. So everyone I called was like, not doing anything, and the concept was not just it was to do it live, so we had it all set up. So we're going to beam in here or beam in there. And, it really, really, really struck a chord for me. What blew me away, it wasn't just the music. It was, you remember when we were locked down and you had already watched everything you could possibly watch on Netflix. There was really nothing else to do. And there was some kind of community that came out of that event that I never saw before. Because every fucking person was on that thing. Like anyone you can imagine, from Kurt Vile to the Districts, Dr. Dog, Christian McBride, McSchooly, Deep Freeway. Plus, who were you talking about at the beginning of the show? What's his name? Nick Greeley. Tons of tons of local, everyone was local, but tons of lesser bands, I guess you would call. And everyone was in the chat room talking the whole time. There was this big thing yo, dude, your set was so good. How you doing? How's your mom? And man, it was the first time I saw Philly community. We like to eat our young, eat our own in Philly. And it was awesome, man. It was just such a good vibe. And so when we came out of the pandemic, I had met a bunch of other people that were like, yo, let's do the same thing for dance and for art. And so now 30 Amp is there's so much political stuff with these with nonprofits and legal stuff, but you have to have a mission statement. And ours is we support health and wellness of musicians and artists of all genres, and we include health and wellness, like the ability to work. And the second prong of our nonprofit is the city itself providing free culture and events for the city, all over the city. And the third is specifically the school district of Philadelphia and creating within there. That's so yeah, man, it's been great. It's been super, super satisfying, but it's a grind. It's weird. It's so weird that people don't support music and art. Todd Carmichael he's a friend of mine. He started La Colombe, and I was like, he'll give me money. He straight up was like, nah, I don't support that. And I was like, he supports a shit ton of other things. He's incredibly philanthropic. And he's just like, it doesn't resonate with me, dude. And he's like, I just to tell you, you're going to have a hard time. That's why, we started working with this. It's kids and school district people are like, oh yeah, that's cool. But it's weird how, we all need music so bad, and people just don't, I don't know. They don't think of it the same way. It's why music and art's always the person that's cut from school. And, it's a struggle, but we're committed, and I've never seen so much talent on every level than in Philly. It just oozes out. Like, that's my Jawn, the Philly Jawn, like that's it. It's everywhere. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's really kind of ridiculous. So much so that I think, we have this festival plan, and, you'll see it just like, wow, we are self-sustaining. Like it can be, all Philly, farm to table, across every genre, and we can compete toe to toe. Forget compete, like we were on our own level, of amazingness. And so, someone was like, "What do you think?" The lineup that we have for this live version of Love from Philly on June 11th is dope as fuck, but. It's now the band. Every band is thankfully on the road on a Saturday in June. But even with the level of artists that we have, from gospel to Latin and hip hop and country, I mean, like I'm so proud of Philly. It's just a good time to be proud of Philly, because like we were talking about back in the day, man, it was really true that no one likes us, we don't care vibe. But I don't think that's true anymore. I think like everyone likes us now. It's kind of annoying when people from, when you're at San Francisco are moving here. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, when did that happen? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, you would never hear that in like 20 years ago.
No, this was the place everyone wanted to get out of.
And we were happy. We're like, fuck you, get the fuck out of here. But now we're like, it's crazy. Yeah,
it's wild. You keep talking about it, and I completely agree. Like, I feel like the scene here right now is like it's just boiling, and it's ready to blow. Like, it is ready to blow. Like, we have so many fans, and that was one of the things the virtual Love from Philly totally showcased, was like, look at this powerhouse of a lineup. Like, I would pay, big bucks for, like that Sunday lineup alone, like, was just phenomenal.
You're totally right. You're right.
But, the one thing that was crazy about that was, it was the weekend of my birthday that you guys did that. And like, because we were locked down, I had nothing. I was like, oh my God, this is like a birthday present. I got a festival that I can stream on my TV, and those performances kind of started me doing my own live streams during that time. Cause I was like, oh wait, I can do that. Like, I can set my stuff up and stream it. And like, it was very inspirational. And those live streams is what created this podcast. So I guess what I'm trying to say is your festival created this podcast. So there you go.
Hey man, that means a lot. And you know what? Listen, I'm right there with you. I was so inspired by all of that. It was something else. It was something else. It just made you believe, it was a weird, dark time. It gave hope, and like, oh, right, this, like everyone was like, yes, this. Oh man, I'll never forget Kurt, fucking Kurt Vile in his basement doing that John Prine cover. John Prine had just died. It was like, and I remember talking to his manager, and I thought for sure he was gonna, like, some people, I'd say 80% of it was live, but maybe 20% was pre-recorded, because some artists are just such perfectionists that they're like, nope. Like Man. They were like, don't worry, we'll make something for you that you're, because then the other weird thing that people did was those combo recordings. The whole band was in different places, but they somehow recorded together. So they did something special. But yeah, man, good for you, good for us, good for everyone. Fucking Philly, man. Let's go.
Yeah,
I love it. I think and my kids, I have kids, like my kids are 20 and 18 and 14. They are so fiercely Philly proud, and they only know Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles Philly. They don't know the suffering. They don't know any of it. They just come out and like their friends think they're cool because they're from Philly. My kid goes to the University of Vermont, and he's like straight up the Philly kid. I was like, yo, this kid from Philly, it's good. It's good for us. It's good for the city.
It's very good. And, curating things like this plays such a heavy part too. Because,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
It gets those names out there and it gets people together. But like, I am really excited for this show on the 11th, which this will air on Monday. So this Saturday at the Oval, because this will come out on the 6th. I'm doing the math.
Gotcha. Yeah,
I'm doing the future math. But
it's really weird. The Mickey Mouse phone in your back.
Yeah.
My dad had that phone in his music closet. I swear.
No way.
His name was Mickey, and he had that phone in his closet, that very one. That's an antique, right?
That is mine from when I was a kid. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And the button down there on the base, the numbers that you push them?
It's actually a rotary. Mine's a rotary.
Damn. Okay. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine be like, first of all, I'll be like, hey Siri, call Phil. I don't have to do anything. I'm just saying something. And the whole concept of like, we did that too. Like I told you when I brought the record in to show like what's a record player, we did that too a while ago with a rotary phone and showed kids a rotary phone and said, how do you think this works? And just put it down on the ground. Don't do anything. Even the receiver part is kind of foreign to people now.
Yeah.
Like, this is what a phone looks like, but the rotary part, no one can figure that out. It made no sense at all. Anyway.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah. I'm surrounded by things from my childhood in this basement. It's like my childhood childhood bedroom, but just in this studio now, like that keyboard over there is the keyboard I learned how to play music on and stuff.
Where do you live?
I'm in the burbs, actually. I'm in Ambler.
Represent Ambler.
Yeah, okay. Ambler for life. But I'm from North Wales, so same area or whatnot.
Yeah, that's great. That's Ambler. Don't sleep on Ambler.
Yeah, no, there's a good little scene here too. But not only did the virtual spawn this festival coming on the 11th, but also you got a theme song out of it from G Love.
Dude, you're on point. You're really on point, because all this stuff you're saying, I'm like, right. Yeah, this is also recent. It all just kind of happened. Now that you're like, yeah, how badass is? Let me tell you, there is no one that loves Philly more than that guy, and there's no one that has endured longer than him. And he has changed. He's an incredible songwriter. He's an incredible musician, and he loves Philly. He wrote, and the funniest thing is, he's like that. He's like, I call him a kid. He's like that guy. He's like that guy that just like wants to play, like the kid on the basketball court that's like, come on, put me in, coach. Come on, let's go. I'll play. He's like that with music, and I knew it. So he was the very, 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 very first person I called. I was like, I'm going to need somebody, because everyone's going to be like, who else is playing? I wanted to have one person to be like, well, G Love is. And that was enough to get the next 10 people. But he was like, he called me back the next day, and he's like, dude, I wrote a theme song. I'm like, for what? He's like, for your festival. And it was really funny, because all he did was sing me the chorus over and over and like improvise like scat, and I'd like, love from Philly, na, 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 and boom. And now, have you seen that? That video is insane. Did you see the video?
I did. G was actually on the show 2 episodes ago. Yeah. And
okay.
Yeah, that song and that video. So like he was the first show I went to when things opened back up. And
which one? Where was it?
It was him and Chuck at the Ardmore. And he played that song, and like I was blown away the first second I heard. Like I was just like, oh my god, this is so full. And then when he started talking about, Schoolie D is going to be on the album cut and on, I was like, this is it. This is Philly. Like this is you did it.
Wow, dude, you are knowledgeable. Yeah, and Schoolie is on the festival too. It's a good plug for him. He's playing, and he is we're celebrating his 60th birthday at the festival. And he's doing a set and he has his artwork we're going to bring out. He has an amazing painter. It's going to be on display and on sale in one of the on-site galleries. And it's so funny. We need anyone donate. Go to 30amp.org. Donate. We're trying to raise money for a bunch of musicians and artists, but we don't have any sponsors because we put this together so fast. But we have a roller rink, right, that we built in the middle of this thing. We're like, we found it's called Millennial Skate Rink in Camden. They're like, we'll come out and but we got to this part. They're like, well, what do you call the skate rink? Who has the naming rights? Because usually when they come out for events, and they are donating it, usually, big companies pay them a lot of money to put up a portable skate rink. And, like it's called the Blue Cross one in one part of town. The other one's called Rothman. So they're like, well, who has the naming rights? And I was like, well, they're like, just, they were kind of like, we're filling out a form. I was like, Schoolie D. It's the Schoolie D skating rink. And they're like, SC. I'm like, yeah. So it's so funny that there's the official Schoolie D roller rink. You can rent skates or bring your own. But it goes back to you talking about love from Philly and G Love. And I think that, what made this festival and that virtual festival so easy to do in a lot of ways is that everybody does love Philly and everyone's so fucking proud, that everyone, I don't know how that would go down in other cities. And, I feel like Philly pride is just peaking, G Love, he is incredible. He's a great musician. Philadelphia, Mississippi. Did you guys talk about that?
We did.
That's a real place, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm stoked for that album. It's like, the idea that he wanted to bring a little bit of Philly hip hop.
Well, you know what? We were talking about like way back, like not way back, but it used to be when I came up, people were like Philly music. Like when you were saying like, high school, college, it was like, there's the Hooters. They're like, that was it forever. People didn't even realize there were good bands like Hall & Oates from Philly. They sort of acted like they were from LA. But G Love, I think, was he was on the upswing, like with the Roots and other groups at that time that really started that like Philly pride and really put us on the map in a way that like expanded out beyond the Hooters. He was there. His first album, man, on that record. Fuck me, that was insane. That was just so cool. But to me, to see like how he put hip hop with whatever he did, folk music or whatever it was brilliant. He had a stand-up bass, him on guitar and harmonica, and that crazy drummer. And like we were saying, like, the reason why we didn't see that many live hip hop shows is because there weren't that many good ones. It was like that. But he was just nuts, man. And the ladies loved G Love. There was no doubt about that. I mean, if you went to a G Love show, there's going to be a lot of ladies there. So.
It's so true. It's so true. Well, I'm really excited for this festival. Like, it's going to be cool.
But you're not going to be there.
You're going
to be there?
I'm trying to get there, man. I'm trying to get there. I don't know that I can do all day. I'm an old guy and festivals like take it out of my legs, but I'll definitely be there.
Well, first of all, there's not much walking to do, but I would say like, just come chill. We're screening Questlove's film. So maybe just come old man at the end and sit and watch that.
Totally. Like that movie blew me away too. Like, I can't believe that he's like one of my favorite musicians and then directs like just this phenomenal documentary and, raises awareness to something that was so long forgotten.
He's that guy. I mean, he's beyond, he's like, he is a genius. He's like a MacArthur genius. He's not a musician. He's just an art, like beyond. I don't even think people realize like his books. He is like writes books on food. He's a foodie, you can't imagine him producing that movie, right? It makes sense. But like people don't realize that he like traveled to like crazy places in Japan and just all over the world for under the food banner, amongst a billion other things. Big up, right?
Yeah, he's amazing. Do you want to go through this Jauntlet questionnaire that?
Yes, I have to tell you though.
Okay.
I saw the first question. I was like, what? And then I was like, Billy Joel, Elton John. I was like, I'm not going to look at any more because I'll obsess about it for too long. So I'm telling you, I didn't look at anything other than the first one, which is easily, without a doubt, Billy Joel, 1,000%. Yeah. Not even fucking close. Billy Joel is the man. And I don't think people realize how the man he is. And I think there's I send people to, there's an old YouTube clip of him in the 70s, like when he was 20, talking about his craft. That guy, he's a songwriter. He never wanted to sing. He was writing songs for other people. He is one of the greatest songwriters. And I will sing The Stranger from top to bottom in the shower all day long. So there you go. Question number one. No, and look, Elton's great, but he ain't no Billy Joel.
I love it. Number two, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
Joan Jett, I love rock and roll. Not even close. Debbie Harry was dope, but Joan Jett was just badass.
She really was. She was so cool.
Badass. You wouldn't fuck with her.
And
she
like,
pulled it off too.
And one of the things that I swear like needs a resurgence is another one of those unappreciated things is I want someone to do a good release of Light of Day, because that movie was awesome and she was great.
I forgot about that. You know what? I totally forgot. But okay, come on, let's keep it going.
All right, next one, Aretha Franklin, Tina Turner.
Come on.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever said anything other?
Two people. I've had two people. Yeah. It's
people that are so wrong. Sorry. I mean, look. I mean, she is at the tippy top of all of it for me. I mean, it's the gospel, because the gospel, that's where it starts and ends for me. It's like her. I mean, she's from the gospel, but
yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
All right. Next one.
This isn't fair because you just exposed that you've worked with them, but Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Yeah. That's not, but I am in the minority there. I still don't get why people thought that Pearl Jam wasn't as authentic as Nirvana, maybe because Eddie Vedder didn't kill himself. But
right.
I also I'm not as punk, I get it. I'm more of a sing along in the shower kind of guy. And so yeah. And they're still around, man. They're still making great music. Eddie Vedder he's a brilliant artist. And I like his solo stuff. I like everything about them.
Yeah, that's my pick.
By the way, this is so much fun. I can do this all day long.
That's awesome.
Thank you for this. This is great.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. You're enjoying it. Like I said, I like this to just be a cool hang. So I'm glad I'm having a great time too. The next one is Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks.
I'm not partial to anyone. I'm not ahead either way, but I'm just going to go with Janis Joplin too, just for being she was the first and another just badass woman that's to me just, she died too young, but she lived hard and I love her voice, but it was more her artistry and how she lived her life and how she represented herself that I really dig.
Dope. Next one is the big one, the cliche one, Beatles or the Stones?
It's that too is interesting. It's totally the Stones, but I wish I loved the Beatles as much as everyone else. And I get it. I totally get it. But fucking Sticky Fingers and Let It Bleed. I was just some Stones records top to bottom, just guided me through hard times in life. And, but they're neither one of them are I'm not live or die.
Right.
I'm sure. Yeah, they're both dope, but I'm not ahead either way.
Yeah, that's what's up. The last one of the one hit wonders, and then we move on to the top 10 countdown. But the last one, Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
It's Bohemian Rhapsody. It's just
Yeah. It's another one like the Aretha one that I think I'm going to have to pull because no one's picking Stairway.
Well, I mean, it's poor Stairway to Heaven. It's just one of those, how damn do I going to hear it again? I mean, everyone's just, we got to move on. The classic rock that I told you that I grew up on was great when it was then, I just, some songs have just become cliche but I get it, I get it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna add one for you since you're a hip hop dude like me. Tribe Called Quest or De La Soul?
Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah.
Even though De La came first and 3 Feet High and Rising was my thing, I Live and Die by the Tribe. They were one of my 3 most influential bands. I will never, ever. You heard their new old record, right? The one that was incredible. And there's a book. I can't remember the name. I have to hit you offline. The name. He's a poet that wrote a book about the tribe. It's called Dear Tribe, and it breaks down top to bottom. But look, I love them both. They were so formative to me because I told you I loved hip hop. I grew up on hip hop or whatever, but it wasn't until De La and Tribe came around that a white boy like me felt like it was something that I could act. I'm I'm talking about the Message and Grandma. I get it and all your shit, and even the silly Sugar Hill Gang stuff is whatever. But man, with De La and Tribe, with their individuality and how they were just like me, how they were just like be yourself, and their rhymes and their stories and their samples. Look, Tropical Quest is one of my top 3 of all time. So there you go.
Definitely. Did you catch that Fife album that just came out like a month or so ago? It was pretty good.
Yeah, like it goes back to what we were saying. If it was 20 years ago, I would probably still be listening to it on my car on cassette. But I heard it once and I was like, oh, this is dope.
Yep, exactly.
That was it.
Exactly. All right. The top 10 countdown. In this, Jawn's in here a lot. You can use it to be whatever. It doesn't have to be music. So whatever you want it to be. But number 1, what was your first Jawn? What was the first thing you were obsessed with when you were a little kid?
The first thing I was ever obsessed with, other than music, because I think that was it. Again, sometimes I look back on my childhood and I feel like it was very regular, Yeah. And I even when I think the only thing that I was really obsessed with, and I wasn't a kid, it was more like when I got a little bit older, I got really into running, believe it or not, running. I then became obsessed with running. So I think that's the only thing I would give it to. I got nothing else for you, man. I got no good, nothing. I wish I had good. I was obsessed with blank, but I don't.
No, running's dope. I'm in. Yeah. I'm in. Number 2, what's your current, Jawn? What are you into right now?
Yoga, 1,000%. Yoga, meditation, more yoga, more meditation, just mindfulness. That's my Jawn.
Awesome. I love it. Number 1, number 3, what was your first concert?
Wow. Okay. So my first concert was still one of the best concerts I ever went to in my life. It was at the Bijou Cafe on South Street. And are you ready for this? Mark Miller's dad took me and Mark Miller, who I didn't even know, but in 7th grade, we both liked music. I knew we both, he took me to the Meatloaf concert.
Wow.
Dude, to this day, at the Bijou Cafe too, is a tiny place. Oh my God. It's still my favorite. He's still my favorite. I think because that, if you see that band live the first time, man, the guitar player. So there you go. What was your first concert?
David Bowie on the Serious Moonlight tour.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's a serious concert.
Yeah. It was legit. My second concert was David Bowie on the Glass Spider tour. So I was ruined from the beginning because it was everything was.
You're a David Bowie head.
I am a bit of a Bowie head. Yeah. Yeah. But to the Meatloaf fact, I was a huge Jim Steinman guy. Anything that dude writes, man,
Yo, big up to you again. Jim Steinman is the brilliance behind me. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's amazing that you know that. Wow, good for you. Good for you.
It's what lives up here instead of every other thing that I need to be up there.
Yeah.
Number 4, what was the last concert? What was the last show you went to?
Yesterday. Does that count?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was at the Ardmore Music Hall. I saw this band Uzi, and they're high school kids from Lower Merion. This kid Ezra and his brother. His brother Ruben, their last name is, I think, Uziyama. And let me tell you that it gave me hope. As the old guys we are, it was a 9-piece band, 3 background singers, a horn section, a drummer, the lead singer, a rapper, and they put together a production. That was the last show I saw. And that was fucking last night. It was amazing.
It sounds phenomenal.
I see music a lot. I just do. I live in Ardmore, so I help open up the Ardmore Music Hall. So I go there a lot. What was your last concert?
Last show we went to.
Do you go with your person all the time?
Yeah, my girlfriend and I. We go to everything. Okay. We actually, our first real kind of date was we went to the Exponential Music Festival together. So that's become our anniversary thing.
All right, it's going to be a good one this year. I'm psyched. Yeah. So what was your last show?
Last show. Oh, we went to Non-Com. So I saw
all that stuff.
G-Love and all that stuff. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It was great. It was a great show. Number 5, what was your favorite concert ever? Was it that Meatloaf show?
No. Maybe. It's so hard to say favorite. Oh, look, I can't even. I think you can only say one of my favorites if you get to a certain age and you see. I've seen thousands of shows, mostly because of my New York days. In New York, I gotta say, man, back then, old guy talk, but it was something else because you would go see 5 shows and you could literally just go to the Mercury Lounge to see the Counting Crows and then go to the Wetlands to see the Disco Biscuits. You could kind of do that. But one of my all-time favorite shows was very recent. It was at I can't believe I'm going to answer it with this because I have so many other ones, but man, in recent times, I saw Anderson .Paak at the Fillmore, and that just sent me into another place. I never saw, the term like he ripped the roof off. Like I honestly thought the roof was going to come up. That was just so fucking phenomenal on every level. So
that's killer.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Anderson .Paak, man. That shit was incredible. And I went with my son, and when we left, I was like, dude, we will never ever see him in a place this small again. And then of course the next place was the Wells Fargo Center. So
yeah.
What was your favorite concert?
Mine, it's a little
Bowie. Is it David Bowie?
It's not. No, but it is something I mentioned. That very first Exponential Music Festival with my girlfriend. During Beck's set, it rained, and then I shot called all 3 songs of the encore. So like we were out on the lawn, like just dancing together on that first date in the rain. Like that's it.
Okay. Good. I like it.
Second is Pearl Jam closing out the Spectrum, which was that was amazing. Okay. Number 6, who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? Can be living or dead.
For sure, Miles Davis.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
100%. There's no seconds or thirds. It's him.
Yeah. Oh my God. It would be perfect. It'd be so perfect.
Yeah.
Number 7, name an unappreciated Jawn. Name something you wish had more attention to it.
Musically?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I think about that a lot too. I can't say. I don't know who I thought, there's just local bands that I think that never will get the light of day because it's stacked against them. Like, okay, there's this band in Philly called Stella Rose. Now look, they might go on to be huge. Okay. And I don't know them, so I feel bad saying this, but I went to their show at the Philadelphia, at the music festival, at Greg Seltzer's music festival, sight unseen. I saw them and I was like, I've never been so like into a local indie band. And so a local band, I think it's bands like that I wish got more shine. I'm like, man, they're so fucking good. Like, why are they not going to be big? And there's this band Darla, that I just thought they were just young jazz guys from Philly. Amazing. So that's where my vote's going to go for, is like the bands that just never, what is making it? Like, how did Beck get to be back? Because the song Loser was around, whatever. There's so many bands out there now and artists out there that will never get their shine that should. So that's my vote.
Respect. Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release.
Anything they release. I mean, now in current days or in the past, I feel like I was flowing on every question, but anything that they release, I mean, I would say just now, it's going to be Kendrick Lamar, I guess, on a modern term, because I can't really even think of a rock band that, no. Take it all back. Okay, here it is. 100%. It's Tedeschi Trucks Band.
Oh, yeah.
That's my Jawn, okay? And whatever my Jawns have been, that's on the current, on this, I've never seen a band that, first of all, they're a band. They travel so hard, and I think they're just incredible. Unbelievably incredible.
That's dope. I think they just released a song today, actually.
Yep.
I just realized I skipped number 8. Number 8, do you have a favorite album?
Yeah. I mean, I do, and I have I have some favorite albums, but I think what comes to mind every time is like, I don't know why, it just is. It's just the Allman Brothers' Eat a Peach is one of my favorite albums of all time, and it really is because of the Mountain Jam, which is 34 minutes at the end. Like, I'll just go. I think that as an album, that's one of my favorites. Miles, I don't want to even get started. I can't even name. Same thing like favorite concert. I think you have to say one of your favorites. But, I think whatever reason, I think because I told you I grew up on classic rock, and that album just has a special place. And I think that they say, like, when you're I think that some of these favorite albums and concerts happen between the age of like 16 and 20. There's some time in your life.
Definitely.
So that record, I have other albums I like, but it means so much to me because of the people involved in it and the places I've been with it, so fucking Allman Brothers, love them. But,
dope. I love it. All right. The 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? Can be anything you want it to be. Doesn't have to be music.
Well, I mean, I think just the Jawn itself, like, it's funny because this, I don't know what your feeling is about that guy, Jawn Morgan.
He's good.
Like and it infuriates me, it really does. I wanted to sue him. I felt like I texted Amir. I'm like, dude, you got to sue this guy. My favorite Jawn is just Jawn. I honestly have been using that word forever and ever and ever, because I think, in my opinion, I don't know what the history is. Maybe, what would you say the history of the word Jawn is, like where it came from? You don't have to know.
No, I know a little bit. I read an kind of etymology origin kind of on it, and they think that it was just like kind of a slow Philly version of joint.
Right.
But then we took it and we expanded so far beyond joint. It's like,
right. But I think Amir, and I don't want to say friends with him, but I was down with the Roots. Like back then everyone was, the Philly scene was so small. And he was the guy that, to me, he had a zine called The Jawn, right? Mm-hmm. And he had a party called Tasty Jawn. Yeah. And, that word just really resonated with me, and I used it all the time with my kids, because with kids, like, they don't know words, they don't know. Like, I was just like, that is a word. I'd be like, yo, pass the Jawn, give the Jawn, and it became like a thing that in its own right of like we know, like, we're part of, like, you named your podcast of it. It's like this, we know a pride thing. So my favorite Jawn is the Jawn in general. I just like Jawn and about. I'll join any which way you want to join. It's all good in my world, and it's all Jawn in my world. I mean, truthfully, I didn't want to sound like this, but like, it's not like my favorite Jawn right now is my walk with my dog that I take at 5:00 every night. I think also my favorite Jawn I've been really loving is just the concept of my Apple phone and my headphones. I love the fact that I can walk around and just be like, hey Siri, play the Allman Brothers. Hey Siri, call Rob. Hey Siri, what's the weather? I feel like I'm in the future.
Yeah, man.
Other than the Jawn, my final answer for my Jawn is my Apple Watch and my earphones, because little me, like, that freaked out when you got a fucking Walkman with the the very first day that I took music out of my room with me on my bike. I never forget that. And so to me, it still resonates now on the modern tip with these insane earbuds, and I could literally say anything to it, play any song in the universe, and I could just say it out loud and it'll happen. That's my Jawn.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I named it this. And that was like the birthplace of all this. Was I just wanted a place to appreciate things. And that's really what this is. It's just a place to, like, kind of just like, hey man, I love this thing, like, I just like liking things. And like, the idea is like, anything that just makes you kind of stop in your tracks and go like, yo, that's my Jawn. Like, I love that, and that's this. And I got to say, man, everything you've touched is my Jawn. Like, you have done so much great stuff, not just for music, but for people. And I am very appreciative that you exist and that you came on here and talked to me.
Dude, it's an honor. Come on. Thank you. And keep up the good work, man. I want a t-shirt. Do you have t-shirts? Did you make?
I got hats. I got these little
can I get one?
I'll send you a hat. Absolutely. I'll send you a hat.
I love
but yeah, so the 11th of June at 11 a.m. Oval on the Parkway, we got a little Love from Philly festival.
Check out Love from Philly.live, and just come down, roller rink, music all day, farm to table Philly art, food trucks, beer garden, Ferris wheel. Yeah, Ferris wheel. So, I think if you're looking for an entry point, you could slide in towards the 4 to 10 zone where you have like World Town. It's one of my favorite Philly bands. Then Schoolie D into Jamal Dean Takuma. Insane, his jazz trio into 2 hours of Cosmo and Rich Medina. Just mixing.
That's going to be sick. I can't wait for that. That's going to be sick. And also, Wallace is playing. She was a guest on this podcast.
Wow. Oh, you know what the common denominator there is? Maggie.
Yeah, that's right.
Big up to Maggie. I love her. She is an incredible woman and a powerful person. And all respect to her. I just think she's the Jawn, the way she lives her life and the way she sort of holds herself and carries herself. I respect the shit out of her. So
100%
for hooking us up. Thank her for that.
Yes, definitely.
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed hanging out with you. Hey, and that's what you said the goal was. So
that was it. We had a good hang, and I appreciate you. So thank you so much for doing this.
Soon.
My thanks again to Andy for joining me today. That man is incredible. You can find out more about his nonprofit 30 Amp Circuit and how you can donate by visiting their website at www.30amp.org. That's 30amp.org. And if you are in the Philadelphia region, check out the free Love from Philly Festival this Saturday, June 11th, from 12 to 10 p.m. at the Ben Franklin Parkway for a full day of arts, music, and Philadelphian culture. A lot of great acts performing live, as well as an outdoor screening of Questlove's brilliant Academy Award-winning documentary, Summer of Soul. And guys, they're going to have a Ferris wheel and a roller skating rink. Yeah. So for more information on the festival, you can visit lovefromphilly.live. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. And I know you want to earn yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout merit badge for citizenship of the world, so go ahead and do just that by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for articles, merchandise, and links to all of the previous episodes of this podcast. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. Well, that's all for today, pals, and I hope you enjoyed that chat as much as I did. Now, I am going to go rest my throat, and hopefully it will sound better by the next time you hear from me. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
Hey yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Your taste in music doesn't have to be.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by Phil Tyler Music featuring Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Natalie Runkle, and the incredibly brilliant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com. Or you can leave an audio message for us and possibly hear yourself on a future episode by visiting anchor.fm/ytmj/message. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure and shout to the world, yo, that's my Jawn.